empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We are excited about tonight's episode. This is going to be one of my favorites. We're going to talk about 2 5-star high-flying wide receivers that we believe Brian Hartline is going to bring into this next recruiting class. Carnell Tate versus Brandon Innis. 2 kids that they were head-to-head right next to each other at camp last year. At the time at camp last year, nobody thought that Brandon Innis was a possibility for Ohio State. They thought he was going to Oklahoma. He commits to Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley takes off. Throws a bomb in the middle of that whole thing. So he opens it back up, and it looks like Ohio State could be the favorite to get Brandon Innis. And Carnell Tate, a big kid. He's transferred to IMG Academy. He played there last year. Tall, angular kid, a ton of upside, and he's really filled out from when we saw him in camp last year to the 7-on-7 circuit. He looks much more muscular, much more defined. Really excited about all this. So this is going to be one of these fun breakdowns where we get to see 2 guys where it's not like a either or. We're probably going to get both, but just kind of see what they could bring to the table for Ohio State's receiving room. So with that, we appreciate your support. Anytime you can give us a like, a subscription, a comment, it adds up. We really appreciate that. We're growing like a weed, and it is all thanks to you. So that being said, I'm going to bring in my friend, Mr. Nevadabuck. Nevadabuck, how are you today?
Doing great. Very excited about this episode. Talking about 2 teammates now on the South Florida Express 7-on-7 team. That's got quite a 7-on-7 team that's got Innis and Tate at wide receiver.
Yeah, they are just filthy. I think that they went like 42-1 last year. And they lost by like 3 points in one game. So they're pretty much the preeminent 7-on-7 outfit in South Florida. They travel all over the country. It's kind of the 7-on-7 thing obviously is very interesting. It's like a lot like AAU basketball. It's not really that big in Ohio, but it's an opportunity to watch how these kids have developed and filled out, and you get a look at these kids before they hit camp in June. So these kids both look like they're killing it. They're in great shape. Talk to me a little bit about what you like about Carnell Tate that you've seen so far.
Well, I mean, Carnell Tate, what you got to remember is, last year at camp, he was really raw. He was a guy that had a lot of potential. He was, a solid 4-star player that, everybody, was really excited about at Ohio State. But he's taken another step here this next year. And you're talking about a guy that's, he's probably a solid 6'2", probably at 180, 185. When he was at the Ohio State camp, one of the things that stuck out about him that really kind of caught my attention was the size of his hand size. He has huge hands. It's like Squidward from SpongeBob or something like that. He's got these gigantic hands that go along with that great body, the great speed. It gives him just an incredible catch radius. He's got really great grip control, and he's a sure-handed receiver who can also take the top off. And right now, guys, I think, in my opinion, he's every bit as good, if not nudged above Innis for the best wide receiver that I've seen. And that's saying something, because Brandon Innis is quite a player, but I like Carnell Tate as much as anybody.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Some of the national services have actually moved him ahead of Brandon Innis, and that's a year ago that didn't really seem like it was possible, but here we are. Innis, I'll take him. He had to play quarterback a lot last year for about 7 games. The quarterback got hurt. He played about 3.5 at receiver. So he's a good enough athlete that he can play quarterback. He's played sparingly on the 7-on-7 circuit, but he's a receiver all day. Extremely competitive, very tough. He's not a burner, but he has incredible hands. And I mean, he's the kind of guy that he's like one of those freaks that catches the point of the ball with his glove and just, it's like a suction cup. And he likes to show off a little bit. It reminds me of Jarvis Landry, Odell. They do that kind of stuff and catch the point of the ball because they're just so focused. They're so good. And I'm just excited about these 2. So we're going to go right into the film room. Let's watch a little bit of Carnell Tate. Really excited about this kid because I think he is going to be phenomenal. His dad's a huge Ohio State fan. And, you see the ups right here. What do you think about this, Nevada?
Yeah, I always like those guys that can high point the ball, and like I said, those big wide receivers that just give you such a big advantage. You see this kid, and he's not one of those small little slot guys. I mean, this is a big, rangy wide receiver that's going to be able to go out and handle the physicality of playing outside or inside. A really willing blocker as well, which is an underrated trait that you have in a wide receiver. And just lots to like about his game. Tough as nails. Will catch the ball, take the hit, and you see that in these clips. He's a very versatile guy.
Yeah, not everybody receiver wants to run this route where they can get their head knocked off, but he's willing and he's tough. This is actually against the infamous Bishop Sycamore, so this is a one-hander. I mean, again, the body control, the concentration. You talked about the massive hands. When you bring it in like that, and I mean the guy's probably interfering with him. Like this kid, he was at camp and he was actually really handsy when it came to he had an interference calling about every single play, but you see the concentration, you see how talented these kids are now. I mean, I never used to see one-handed catches like we do now, but these kids work at it. This kid inside leverage, physical off the ball. I believe he flashed an OH after that touchdown, by the way. So that's always a good thing. His dad, you hear the effort, the toughness, not quitting. And obviously this is a team that, was grossly overmatched, but you can only play, like I said yesterday, you can only play against the guys that they schedule. So, all he can do is go out and dominate, and that he did. Yeah, we'll run some more of these because again, it's just fun to watch this kid since he's pretty much a lock to be a Buckeye, and he's getting bigger and better. I mean, he looked at 7-on-7 a couple weeks ago. He looks much thicker than he did a year ago at camp.
Well, and one of the great things about Tate as well, he's versatile enough to be a return guy as well. Like, he's a guy who can return punts, he can return kickoffs. Reminds me a lot of Emeka, and a guy who's got that that uncanny ability to accelerate into the oncoming traffic because he's fearless when he goes up there. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of get his start returning kicks at Ohio State and making kind of an immediate impact.
Yeah, I mean, he's running inside, he's running the posts, he's running the shorter intermediate routes, which not every receiver in the world wants to do that because you're going to get smoked when you go in the middle. If you're playing a big time, Big Ten team, if you go across the middle of the field, there's a chance you're going to get clipped. And he's not shy. He's going in there. He's returning a punt, as you just mentioned. Fluid. Again, I love guys that can get on the field as freshmen and be shorthanded back there and go get some yardage as a punt returner because it gives them a varsity letter. It gives them a reason to travel and be engaged. And anytime you can take that off the plate of an older guy like a Garrett Wilson or an Olave, I'm all for that. Yeah, kick returns as well.
Yeah, you see that acceleration into the hole, and not a lot of guys want to do that. That's the thing on kickoff. That's the difference between the good kickoff returners and the great ones, and the bad ones is the guys that are willing to run fearlessly at 11 guys running full speed at them, and not everybody wants to do that. I totally understand it, but Carnell's one of those guys that's he's got the knack for doing it, and he's fun. Every time he touches the ball, he's a threat to take it the whole way.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you talk about special teams and young kids. A lot there, that culture has really shifted under Urban Meyer, and it's continued with Ryan Day. Where if you're a young skill guy, a running back, a receiver, you probably didn't play a lot of special teams in high school. You might have as a sophomore. Your senior year, probably not playing punt coverage and kickoff return. But if you want to get on the field at Ohio State, I mean, you've got to start off on teams. Like you've got to be a guy that signs up to run down and crack somebody on a kickoff. I mean, if Ezekiel Elliott can do it as the fourth pick of the draft, then anybody can do it. Anybody should be expected to do it. But I'm real excited about him. I think he's going to be fantastic. This is actually at camp last year. This isn't, this is a little further away, but I mean, you see Brian Hartline working with him, doing running around cones like everybody loves to do. But he's got his Ohio State shirt on, and his dad was all Ohio State the whole time we were there. So that was a good feeling. But he's much thinner. I mean, as you can see, you can't really see from that high coaches film what we were watching, but he was much thinner here than he looks this year in 7-on-7. So I can't wait to see how he looks in camp. But you see the smoothness. Here's a competitive rep. Good route, good catch. Goes and gets the ball, doesn't body catch. So now we're going to get into my boy. We're going to get into Brandon Innis a little bit. And this is some camp film. Sometimes I like to show some camp film just because it's lower and you can kind of see the body composition a little bit better than you can from the high all 22 where, they look like ants, frankly. So, again, super competitive. This is just kind of a nothing camp, but, when you see these kids diving and doing everything they can to get a ball and basically a meaningless camp drill, then you're just like, okay, he's a competitor, and Brandon Innis is as competitive of a player as I've seen on the camp circuit. And he loves to win, loves to catch the ball. Nevada, what are your thoughts initially on Brandon Innis and the thought of getting both these guys in the same class, which would be amazing?
Yeah, well, I think if if and when we land both these guys in this class, I mean, you've got an argument for getting the best wide receiving core in the nation at Ohio State once again. And we look at that loaded wide receiver room from last year, and you've got the guys coming on, the young pups that are replacing the grizzled veterans from last year, and you're like, who's next? Well, these two would go a long way towards ensuring that the Ohio State passing game is going to remain high flying for at least the next 2, 3, 4 years. So no, I'm if we got this would be about as good a gets as we could possibly have. And as you mentioned in the run up on the show, I think Ohio State's a strong favorite to land both of them. So that's certainly exciting news.
Yeah, and like I said, you can't make full evaluations off 7-on-7 tape because there's no run blocking, there's no. It's just everyone's kind of open because it's all man coverage. But here, I mean, you see the competitiveness, and sometimes when they're playing with touch or flag or whatever it is, you got to see if these guys if they have the agility to make people miss. So here's another shot of Brandon, in bad field, keeps his feet, gets the ball, no whistle, dead legs the guy, takes it to the crib. And so it's like, it's silly, but this is sometimes I just like to see the most current stuff, see how quick a guy looks. And now here's some actual game tape, so again, he wide receiver for 3.5 games. The rest of the time he's playing QB, but you get some really good reps of him here out wide. And again, it's just like throw it up to him, and he gets behind guys, bad ball, but gets it, competes, and when he gets it, he wants to go score. Like he's not a guy that's looking to fall down, get in the ground. He's a guy that at every camp rep, he always finished in the end zone when they're doing the competitive series. So I love this kid. I think he's my number one receiver on the board. He's a really polite kid, nice kid. Talked to him at length after the camp last year. Talked to all the South Florida Express kids really, and he's going to be a treat if we can land him. I mean, I'm really excited about him. It's not him, but it's like he's playing quarterback, so he's kind of like one of those guys who's the best athlete they've got, and it's something when a guy is like Jack Sawyer playing quarterback for Pickerington a couple years ago. Like here he is, running in the open field, the QB run. It's hard to stop, believe it or not. Some people don't believe that, but Nevada and I do. But when you coach youth football, Nevada, you always put your best player at quarterback, right? Because they touch the ball on every single play.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the winning formula when you're playing at a lot of levels of football. Is get the best athlete the most touches and get them in as much space as you possibly can. And when I talk to my contacts down in South Florida, there's comparisons with this guy to Torrance Gibson, and he doesn't quite have the floaty type of ability. I mean, Torrance was a super freak, and probably maybe the greatest football athlete to ever come through Ohio State. But Innis is another one of those top end types of athletes that just kind of glides out there in the field, super competitive, as you said, can play a number of different positions, could play defense in a pinch if he needed to, and just a guy that you want to get the ball in his hands as many times as possible and see what happens. Kind of a prototypical big time SEC athlete that would be as we talked about before, just a huge addition to the Ohio State offense.
Yeah, I mean he would be again. That's why like with recruiting, I never get super excited about a kid verbally committing because so much stuff can change by signing day. Like with him, he goes to Oklahoma and nobody in the universe thinks Lincoln Riley's leaving. And all of a sudden in the middle of the night, he leaves and goes to USC. And then all of a sudden it's, well, I was coming for this high flying offense and Lincoln Riley and, it's not me anymore. So, if something would happen to any coach, it doesn't have to be the head coach. It could be a position coach. If someone takes off to be a coordinator, to be a head coach somewhere, it's like, until the ink is dry, man, it's tough, Do you have any stories where you thought something was done and then somebody left and all of a sudden it all blew up into thin air?
Wow, I mean that's happened so many millions of times. I mean, I'm always still having nightmares about just little bad omens. I think it was Darrell Price who faxed the LOI in upside down and then wouldn't go, or kids leaving. I mean, just so many things can happen until you get it, and now even after you get them with the portal, they could leave at any time. So it's
Oh,
like, you're constantly having to be recruiting and re-recruiting and re-recruiting guys. And the good thing about Ohio State is if you're a wide receiver and you see what Ryan Day and Brian Hartline are doing with wide receivers, like where else would you want to be other than Ohio State? I mean, Ohio State is it's the place where all the great quarterbacks want to go, and it's frankly the place where all the great wide receivers want to go. So from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, and as long as it's good for business, then we'll keep attracting guys like this and get more than our fair share.
yeah, and there's no fear of playing a young player at Ohio State because I mean, you look at the Rose Bowl is the greatest example of all time. You look at the game Marvin Harrison Jr. had, you look at the game Emeka had, then the icing on the cake is JSN, who is a second year sophomore and he breaks every record in bowl history or whatever, and it's they're not scared to play you if you're a freshman. If you're good and you're ready to go, they'll put you in front of the guys that have been here for 2-3 years, and that's why for some of these guys that have been sitting in a room for a few years and they haven't made much progress, man, you better get rolling because I mean they're not waiting on you, and they'll move guys up and give guys shots if you're not going to grab it. And it's nothing against the kids, it's nothing against certain older guys that haven't really produced or lived up to their I guess their national stars billing type of thing, but they're not scared. And it's like if I'm one of these freshmen and I see what's in front of me, I'm trying to take a job and go play and go do whatever I can to get on the field. Like, I mean, I love like Brandon Innis here. It's just explosive, tough as nails, wants to finish, doesn't go down easy. But yeah, it's gonna be a treat coming down the stretch with this recruiting, and I'm excited to see how the class finishes up.
Yeah, well, like last year at the Rose Bowl when Garrett and Olave decided to sit out the Rose Bowl. A lot of people were fretting about that, but frankly, from my standpoint, that was one of the positive indicators for Ohio State because you knew that the guys that were going to be on the field were going to be really trying and not just playing it safe. And I think that makes a big difference right now. And the fact is that we got a chance to see what Jackson Smith and Jigba could do, and we saw Marvin Harrison Jr. catch 3 touchdown passes, and we saw Mecca break out. So, like you said, the young guys, they get their chance, and sometimes the chances come quicker than you think. With with opt outs and guys going to the league early and two and done and other things like that. So you better be reloading all constantly in college football, otherwise you're going to be falling behind the curve for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you go around basically most of the spots, you see, on the offensive line, Harry Miller was penciled in as a starting center. He goes down early in the season, doesn't start a game. So it's like, Luke Whippler was ready to go. You see Thayer Munford had a bulky back for a lot of the year, missed a lot of time. And, Matt Jones was getting his at bats. And, with injuries and the way college football is and the season keeps getting longer and longer, like you need depth and you need kids that are like this. Cause it was like watching Emeka in spring last year when I saw him at the spring game and he looked like a man. He didn't look like an 18-year-old who just got here and is trying to find his way around campus. He was there, 12 catches in the spring game, no anxiety, no nerves, nothing. Just showed up and balled. And yeah, that always bodes well when these guys, these guys, they're closer and closer to being professionals from a mentality standpoint than they've ever been. There's year-round training centers. Obviously, Marvin Jr.'s dad is one of the greatest receivers ever play. So it's just one of those things where you've got some really some stuff that I'm just excited to see and see how these guys do. In closing, I hope we get them both. I think it's going to be a fight down the stretch as always. But Tate's dad's favorite team is Ohio State, and I think that him and Brandon have developed a little bit of a chemistry and a friendship. So it'd be really neat to get both of them. So, in closing, your final grades on these two, both 5 stars to you, Nevada?
Oh yeah, they're both 5 stars, both like top 5 wide receivers in the country, and for my money, like I said, I've got Tate a little bit over Innis, but not by much. Both it's just exceptional talents, and I've had Tate as an equal sign to Ohio State for quite some time, and I think the Buckeyes are going to get a couple of really elite wide receivers and just continue the great tradition of wide receivers at Ohio State.
Yeah, and it was funny when I was standing at camp last year. I said, if Carnell Tate was in like a South Florida Express jersey at this camp, he'd probably get like a little bit more of a buzz. I mean, he was great at camp, but it was like, he's just, he's just part of his team. He's going to IMG and stuff. But like this, South Florida Express kids, they're all geared up. They're all, they show up. I mean, those guys I appreciate those guys because how hard they compete. They got off the plane at like 10:30, and the afternoon session started at like noon. So they're eating peanuts and pretzels on the plane. You go right to the field, cleats, put them on, and go out and just ball. And there's a lot of kids that be like, well, let me just ride around on the golf cart with Ryan Day and chill and not do anything today, and I'll work out tomorrow. But these guys got ready to roll, man, and I was super impressed by that. Obviously the organization's top notch, the South Florida Express, but it was really cool to see. So with that, if you want to join the #1 insider site for Ohio State football, Buckeye Scoop is your place. We have been cranking content even in the dead times right now. We've been getting great insights on winter workouts, the St. Valentine's Day celebration that used to be the massacre. It was a Friday workout where they just gutted the kids. Just fantastic stuff. We've been doing these film breakdowns. We've got a great community, great recruiting, great inside info. So if you're looking for a gift for that special someone or yourself, please join BuckeyeScoop.com, and I will see you on the boards.
Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? We're 6 seconds, 8 point beat, everything you got. Everything you got.